I need to clap us in. We're at it. Barry,
Hi.
what is happening?
I I'm good, man. How are you? How are you?
Oh man, I'm just I'm feeling blessed. I was just chilling before this because I wanted to clear my mind before we're having this conversation. Our conversations in the past have gotten very deep. So I mean, like
Very quick,
we're
mate.
go.
Very deep, very quick.
Too deep too quick. We're gonna try and ease the listeners in here into our rhythm. But just to give a little background, like we met at PMC after I made a track for you and for your label, and we just hit it off like right off the bat. You and your amazing partner Brian, right?
Yeah, Brian. Yeah.
Yeah. And just like um two amazing people, each by their own right. And I feel like we've talked about we got in. The funny thing was we got in real deep real fast, and I didn't even get your story. So, so I feel like, first of all, thank you for coming on. I'm so grateful to have you here, and
Pleasure.
thankfully, and second, just like let's go into your story, man, and into how you came to become who you are and what you have today, music wise, artistic wise, business wise, and all that kind of good jazz. And we can swear, by the way. Barry was so nice. He was asking me if we can swear in the podcast, and we for fucking sure can.
But that's reassuring. Thank you. There was no way I was going to make it through an hour without swearing. It's just not
It
going
would
to
have to be
happen.
like, I mean, I did. So
Yeah,
okay, yeah, let's go.
yeah. Okay, so I mean, basically, my story is that I started out in bands when I was like 14 years old. Typical story. Got into bands at school, just kind of um, really just playing in rock bands. Had really long hair, just like down to my waist, and so yeah, it happened. And then had had lots of problems with like drummers not never turning up to gigs and rehearsals and stuff, and so got into thought I'd start using computers and production because then I'd wouldn't have to deal with drummers, which kind of worked, you know. And and then from there, just had this like long process of kind of went from being involved in rock music and bands and things, and then got slowly involved in electronic music, house music. Um, Started a house music label, Choo Choo Records, which just blew up like amazingly well. Started DJing, was kind of DJing all over the world, and then I was playing a lot in Russia before before this current period of madness, and was playing a lot in Russia, and just all these like crazy experiences kept happening. Like anti-terrorist police storming the club that I was playing in, and and planes catching fire and cars crashing, and it was just like every weekend I'd have a different story. It was amazing, and I was at Medem in Cannes, and I was bitching about like getting people pulling guns on me in Russia, and it was like proper first world problems. It's just like, oh,
Wow.
I've got to travel around the world and people keep pulling guns on me, um and um and KPM. I was kind of in earshot of KPM at Medem, and they said, "Oh well, why instead of getting all this shit in when you're traveling, why don't you do a production music album for us?" And I was like, I didn't know who KPM were. I didn't know what production music was. I was like, I've got no idea what any of this shit. And I went back to my publisher at the time and said, "Oh, KPM want me to do this album, and and they were mortified because they were, well, if you're going to do production music, it's got to be through us. And they set up this deal, and I did this album, and they gave me this little bit of an advance for the album. And honestly, I thought it was the best thing that had ever happened. I got I got a string quartet involved and all these amazing musicians. I'm like, this is brilliant. This is
Wow.
fantastic. So I did this album, and it off it went, and I just sort of forgot about it, and because I didn't understand that there was going to be a delay in seeing any kind of royalties or anything. So I was like, "This is the best thing in the world. There's no money. So what do I do? What do I do now?" And I just kind of just carried on DJing, and then 2 years later, suddenly I start to see royalties from this album, and I'm like, "Oh my god, this is amazing! I must do more." So I did another album 2 years later, and there's this. I mean, it took probably 3 albums over, I don't know, 6 years or something for the penny to finally drop. That I was like, oh, this is the way this works. It's kind of there's this natural delay, which I kind of, when I started doing production music, there was no one really just sat me down and explained it to me. I was just like, I didn't know what was required. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. I didn't know what worked, what didn't work. And then I had this period of time, and kind of like fast forwarding through it. I kept doing production music, but um, I had someone kind of rip me off really badly, and just, I mean, I'm sure we'll get into that maybe a bit more, but like, and you really experienced like a dark side of the industry, and just just people um, having real bad intentions, but I kind of came through all that, and carried on writing. Started writing for Universal, um, and just got into this pattern of starting to make production music kind of like my day-to-day thing. And basically, to cut a long story very short, the myself and the two other directors of Energy, Brian, who you met, and Phil, we all got ripped off by the same person, who remained nameless. But and we eventually, because of this, we had this incredible bond, and we actually started the company together, um, due to this bond. We were this little band of brothers who'd all been ripped off, who'd all really got these kind of war stories of just a real terrible um, side of the business, and we started the business from that. So, and I mean, I've skipped over a ton of stuff. I've done a lot of commercial sync stuff, done bespoke stuff, and but yeah, I mean, that's kind of that's kind of the journey. Um, it's but I mean, it's been over. I started doing production music kind of like 20 years ago, which is a lot. I don't know. I think that just makes me old. But
Yeah, that's a long time. I mean, where was I in 20 years ago, man? I just started playing guitar. So you were already getting royalty checks. I'm just saying.
well,
Um, something like that.
yeah. Okay, that works. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, of course, not exactly in this timeline, but um, what did I want to say? I feel like it's inevitable to ask the big question about the dark side of the industry, and I feel like that's something that I haven't even gotten to in this podcast. I mean, like, there were guests that were speaking about people with not necessarily the best in mind for the artist, for the composer, but I wonder what darkness have you seen along, along your 20-year journey in this field.
I mean, I'd say right off the bat, I think of all, I've been involved in like the commercial side of music, the specific sync side for commercial sync, and I would definitely say that production music, it, on the whole, is like it's the friendliest, nicest corner of the whole music industry. People who like other labels that I know are even people who you describe as a competitor. We're friendly. We're really we share ideas. We're not. I don't get the vibes that I do from other elements in the music industry. I mean, what have I seen? There's just some bad actors out there. There are people who are in the main using people who aren't very experienced, and they're just straight up ripping them off. And it's either through just promising people the world, and then relying on people's I don't know, naivety, or of wanting everything to work out, so they kind of believe people who are just offering them things. Um, I mean, I kind of I'm going to be really careful because I'm not going to name names. But there are just I've just had really awful experiences of people going around the industry and just bleeding people dry for just taking their music and not crediting them or just straight up not paying them. It's just it's bad. It happens, and and me personally, I've had it happen on a huge scale. Where that's happened to me, and I know Brian and Phil that it's exactly they've had exactly the same experience, and it just I don't know, it just cascades down. But there are it's really difficult, I think, because it comes down to at the heart of the heart of production music. There's there's this balance that you have to reach, which is that you don't overvalue individual tracks, but you value the whole of your catalog. So if you make 10 tracks, right, and if you obsess about the value that those 10 tracks are going to give you, then um, you're always going to come up short, because it's production music is a numbers game. You need that catalog, and individual tracks can have huge placements and earn huge amounts. But the way to have that the lengthy career is to have a catalog that's wide ranging and has been built, because then the individual tracks will start to build up even small placements. So there is a danger of just overvaluing individual tracks. Some people, the bad actors, for want of a better phrase, they they just try and kind of interrupt that process and just want you to just give up as many tracks as possible to them, and it's the tracks just get lost, and it's just it's I mean, it's just there are just people out there who I mean, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I've just had a bad experience, but I've come across two, three people doing this exact same thing, where just taking new writers and just straight up just lying and not paying and things. It's it's hard, man. It's hard.
Do you still, so That was in the production music industry, yeah?
Yeah, yeah,
Cool. So,
yeah.
I mean, like, do you still see this done? Do you like? I mean, because today it's more of a social media world, and people can ask each other questions right away, and like people are in touch with people.
Mhm.
Um, do you still feel like, let's say, what are red flags you would be looking for as a composer?
Um, red flags in yeah, okay. So I mean, I think really the key thing is that it's just if you could speak to other composers who are already working with the company or the individual. I mean, I'd have to say actually, I'm just interrupting myself that I think it's more individuals rather than companies. I don't. I'm sure that there are companies out there, but it's just there are. I've had experience of individuals who are. I think a lot of times they're trying to isolate composers. I think maybe a red flag is just people who are trying to suggest that you don't speak to other people. Who are because that comes up. Oh, don't. It, I mean, it's essentially it's just like being in an abusive relationship. It's the oh, don't speak to other people. Just keep it between ourselves. All this crap. It's just people acting in a really abusive way. But when they're just taking your good faith and maybe a little bit of I keep saying naivety, but I think perhaps naivety is not because everyone wants to succeed, everyone wants to explore as many options as they can. So it's difficult, but I think a lot of times you can just if if someone's trying to isolate you and try and keep you to themselves and not and suggesting that you shouldn't like speak to other writers or people who they're working with, then I think that's a pretty large red flag. I think.
Yeah, that's something huge. That's how we got together, I feel like, because like I've done something with Jamie, who was on this podcast, by the way, as
Yeah.
well. And he talked so highly of you. And then I was like, well, Jamie is the guy. Like I look up to this guy in every sense, and his approach to life and everything is something that I admire. Shout out to Jamie if he's listening. But when he told me about you, so he spoke about you in such an like in a no-brainer kind of way, which was a few episodes ago. I keep bringing this episode up with Eric because Eric is a very good friend and a composer. He was in PMC as well, and we were talking about people who are willing to put other people's name on the line
Mhm.
for their name to be and risking their name being hurt,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm putting it the correct way, but let's say he put your name in front of him saying, like, these guys are amazing. And basically, like, what I heard from him was, I'm willing to put my name, my signature on
Mhm.
telling you that these guys are amazing. And so when you get to work with them, you got my signature. And so he's putting um his faith in you in such a
Mhm.
way that conveys to me that it's a no-brainer to work with you.
Mhm.
Which was, to me, it was like amazing. Once I put a face to a name, it was like, oh, hell yeah, like it made
Really.
everything so easy. That's why I love, like, connecting with people in reality as well, because of that, because I feel like there's a lot of misunderstanding in something like an email, or in like
Absolutely.
or in questions, or in writing in general. It's just like somebody can mean something. Just a few days ago, somebody wrote me something about my podcast, and I just didn't know how to take it. so I just left it alone.
Yeah.
And I commented a very, very positive comment and left it alone. But then, like, as I came back to it, I realized maybe he probably didn't mean it in a cruel way, you know. Like, I
Yeah,
just want to
yeah,
give people the benefit of the doubt. But that's why, like, I feel like meeting people in person can give such a huge significance to a relationship, and also to the certainty of working with them. Because in the end of the day, like, I feel like I'm not a machine. In the end of the day, I want to make friends as well. And
absolutely.
yeah, so
But
I,
I mean,
I,
also the fact is, I think we all want to work with people that we like. I think it's basic human nature. You know, we want to work with people and be around people that we can actually relate to, and that, you know, we kind of feel that kind of connection to. Um, you know, to go back to Jamie, I mean, Jamie is an absolute superstar. Him and Tom are such good people, and it's like, you know, I'm really pleased. Like, you know, he said what he did. You know, about recommending us, because to be honest, from my point of view, we've I've been and like we've been ripped off so badly. It's like just horrendous,
mm.
to the point of like destruction, like tens and tens of thousands just like stolen. That um I'm like, I just want to be right with people. I don't want there to be a grey area. It's like, right, this is how we're going to deal with people. We're going to deal with them in the right manner. So, and because of that, I want to be working with people that I like, and it needs to be that kind of, just, I want to have a relationship with everyone connected to the business, where we're actually, um, you know, we can call ourselves friends, and we're actually, even though we're doing business, and you know, there's still business transactions that are going on, we're all we're doing it in a really friendly manner. Because to me, I just think, you know, like, I'm not, you know, let's be honest, we're not like mining lithium or something. We're not this is it's the music industry, it's a business, but it's still creative. We're still being creative. It's, you know, there's a beauty to this. Let's not it Because it's a business, we don't need to suddenly turn it into something where, you know, like it's a Victorian fucking factory or something, and we're all just, you know, grey and staring at the wall. It's just, it can still be something beautiful. It can still be something creative.
And it
Um,
can also it can also go to the darker place that you were talking to, which is it's just like, that's I feel like the kind of thing that it's the underlying theme of humanity right now at the moment. It's just like, things can be so absolutely wrong in the world. But that being said, there is something to lean on. Like, when there is something like creativity to lean on, it's
yeah,
so much. It's so comforting, man. Like, in times of, man, there have been, in the past few weeks, have been times of very deep grief from me, and I find myself going, like, oh my god, I'm actually so grateful that I have an outlet, that I have that I'm working with a label on an album about superheroes, because I feel like I'm going through it right now and I can talk to them about it, you know. So it's just like, and that's the beauty of that side, I feel, of it, of just people being able to be people in this, you know.
mm, yeah.
uh
I
and
think though, you know, it's like, there's so much darkness. There's so many real people who are just on that dark side, that actually, you know, in really simplistic terms, the good people have got to stick together, because, you know, if we don't recognize that in one another, then we're fucked. We're just fucked. It's just,
mm,
we've got to actually work together, and we've got to try and stick together, because there is just so much darkness. It's just,
mm,
you know, turn the news on for like 5 minutes. It's just horrors.
give me one minute and I'm
It's
depressed already.
exactly. It's just, there's just. just the stupidity of people, just the evil. It's just fuck it, man.
Mm. How do you so like how do you see the let's say moving forward, how would an ideal production music industry look to you?
Um, I mean, I think I I don't know about an ideal one. I think the one that we're starting to get at the moment is we're getting a situation where there is starting to be some pressure from AI created music on specifically on what would be classed as royalty free music. So your Pom fives and sites like this. I think there is starting to be some pressure on like the um, what would traditionally be regarded as kind of like the lower tier of production music. That's not to say it's bad music. It's just like the things that aren't generating performance royalties, things that are just people are using on buyouts, on like micro licenses or whatever.
Mhm.
There's starting to be more pressure on the bottom end of the industry. What in terms of what could be a perfect situation for it is that I think um, there's more and more quality coming through in production music. That is just plain as day, and I think I just think that's a good thing. I think my pet hate is when people say um, about some rough demo or some rough version. It'll be like, oh, it's good enough for library. I mean, or even worse, is it's too good for library, too good for production music, which is like, oh my god, that is just to me that's fighting talk because you could the the quality that's needed now for production music. People don't want music that kind of sounds like some guy sat in his bedroom just having a go at I don't know just some guy. Oh, today I'm going to write some future bass, and then tomorrow I'll write some hip hop, and then maybe I'll do some jazz the day after. People, it's pretty rare that stuff's flying because people want the authenticity. It needs to be because there's this downward pressure on like the bottom tier of production music. What's really coming forward is the quality, is the songs, is the really well produced hip hop about superheroes that's got lyrics that are perfectly that just sounds like it could be on the radio, but then the lyrics are just tuned so it just works perfectly for sports, and it'll work in sports montages, and it'll work in advertising. That's what people want. They don't want people just having a go at various kind of styles of production music. It's that it's the quality that's coming through, the songs, the things that just sound like it could be on the radio. It should be on the radio. That's what people want, I think.
Yeah, that's a discussion that's been coming up for sure. That now, like a lot of libraries that were going for quantity over quality are now switching their model, which is super
Yeah.
interesting to see because also like the license, the industry because of all the strikes and all that went more towards the blanket license
Hmm.
direction, and just like seeing those two different things happening at the same time, it was
Yeah.
so it was a bit like a mind fuck to me, but
Hmm.
it makes total sense, and I feel that it's a great thing in my opinion, that not anyone can just go and write a melodica melody, a whack. And there are cool melodica melodies, but like a whack melodica melody, put it through some saturator and make like hundreds of thousands of dollars over it, which will still happen here and there. But I feel like now there's something about, like, something in the in that I feel in the industry that is hungry for just like depth and quality and lyrics and things
Mhm.
that make people feel something. So there's more of that, I feel like, to it, which is it's a great thing. It's fresh for sure.
Absolutely, and it's the focus on quality can only be a good thing. It's and I think with COVID and the fact that at a stroke the whole uh, uh, gig scene and touring and the amount of musicians who just like suddenly lost their income stream when COVID hit, well, when the lockdown started, meant that there was a lot of kind of fresh blood came into production music, and it's I think they've kind of that just out of nowhere, that just infusion of fresh blood and people who haven't been doing this for 20 years, who haven't been doing this for 10 years, actually was a really good thing, because of the delay in the kind of payment structure for production music. A lot of those people won't probably stick around because the gigs started to happen again, the tours started to happen again, so they kind of went back to the original um, careers. But obviously, there are still people who kind of just came into it then and kind of went, well, a bit like me, when instead of getting shot at, they were like, this is kind of nice, doing this in my like nice little warm studio,
Yeah.
um, and I think that's a real positive thing because they brought all the sensibilities and the authenticity of the music styles that they were writing anyway. They've added that to what was there already,
Yeah.
and I think if you kind of you go back to the when like a label like Extreme started, when Extreme kind of came into production music, the one thing they brought was, aside from like a fuckload of attitude, they brought this real authenticity about everything, and it was, I think it was a bit of a shock to the system for a lot of the other libraries, and I mean I do think kind of like now a, a lot of the libraries have kind of gone above and beyond what Extreme were doing. I think Universal certainly have, and the labels with Universal and others. But it's just keeping production music on that. The key thing is the the authenticity, because what you don't want is you don't want music that sounds like something that you can clearly identify as production music. It's like it shouldn't be. It's just music. The only thing that determines it being production music is the licensing terms. If you're like, oh yeah, that sounds like production music, it's like, well, you've sort of failed. It's not. There's no such thing. It's not supposed to sound like production music. Yeah, all right. There's certain arrangement styles and there's certain ways of using edit points which are clearly identifiable as production music. Okay, yeah, that's fair enough. But in terms of like a style, in terms of the quality, there should be no way of determining whether or not it's production music or it's a commercial release.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, there's nothing I can add to that. It's so perfectly said, uh, um, and yeah, and that gives me hope. And also, people. To my argument to this is people who have been in vans and in touring buses and all these things, and DJs that travel around the world that have really demanding schedules. Like, these people work like mad people. You know it as a DJ. Like going to LA for 3 days. It just doesn't fucking make sense. It's just like it doesn't. And being able to come back home and maybe get a nice check from Universal, or a nice streaming check, or a nice or a nice royalty check or whatever, so you can
Mhm.
sit at home and take that and take all that jet lag that you have in your system right now, and just go watch a movie, go clear your mind for a few days, because I know too many people who cannot do that, cannot afford to do that. And I feel like production music is something that can enable that in the long run.
Mhm. Yeah, I think so. I think it is. It's a it feels like it's a very nice calm area of the music industry, without it being like this twee um, area where it's so far removed from commercial area, commercial music. I I don't think that's the case at all.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's everything you said is exactly that. Do you see are there any mistakes that you see a lot of composers make in this industry right now,
Um,
or
yeah,
anything
I mean,
specific that comes out? Yeah.
anything specific. I think people can kind of what I was speaking about before. I think there is a tendency sometimes for composers to overvalue individual tracks and not see the actual value in the wider catalog. I think that can really play out. People get very hung up on individual tracks, when it can be an issue. It can it can it can create issues where they're really like these 5, 10 tracks or whatever. They think they're going to earn absolutely a fortune from these tracks, whereas really it's the body of work that you build up over like years. That's what's going to earn you the money.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a head fuck really, because you've got to kind of like think, right, each individual track has got to be the best thing that you can do, absolutely the best thing that you can possibly do, but then ignore all the individual tracks and it's just about the body of work. It's just like, well, which one? And it's like, well,
Mm,
it's both. Unfortunately,
yeah.
you've got to just get into the habit of just making the music, right, writing the tracks, making music, getting them released on good labels, and just just constantly improving. I mean, from a technical point of view, issues that we see. I mean, I think sometimes there's a tendency to ignore what the music's going to be used for, because alongside the fact that you're I mean, it's so bipolar, because I'm saying on the one hand, right, it's got to sound authentic, it's got to sound like something on the radio, but then along comes this other demand, which is, but at the same time, you've got to think that your superhero hip hop track, well, the it's more than likely going to be aimed at like sports montages and advertising. So it's got to have the edit points so that the music editor can cut it cleanly. And you've got to bear in mind that the the other versions are going to have voiceover on there. So you've got to make sure from a mix point of view, it's kind of like it's smooth, and you're not going to have frequencies that are just going to really collide with the voiceover. So we do see um, with with composers, especially new composers, they don't pay enough attention to the detail of what the track's going to be used for,
Mm.
of what the end result is going to be, so that we have to kind of go, okay, but like you've delivered this amazing track, right? And you look at it on screen, and it's like this big blue shit on the screen, right? A
The
solid
turd.
wall, yeah, a
It's the
massive
turd.
thing. Yeah, and you're like, okay, so where's the edit point in there? and you're like, well,
Mm.
there's no edit point because it's full on. It's just, and it's like, well, so unless someone's going to use your entire track over 2 minutes, they're just going to do a really hard, rude edit on the two track, and it's going to sound like shit. And then on the other hand, they've got another track that's got the clearly defined edit point, and they're like, well, but that track, maybe your track's better, but this other track's going to sound better when it's cut to picture because it's easier to edit. So we have to kind of we kind of go back a lot of times with composers and just kind of like use reference tracks and say, okay, just look at the way this is arranged, look at the way this has been done. You know,
Yeah.
is that something, is that something you could bring into your track? Is that something you could bear in mind? Um, and it's, I mean, it's just, it becomes like just muscle memory for people. It's just, I think you just get used to it. It's like, when people are writing trailers, right? Trailer music, like 3-4 act structure, really clearly defined arrangement. But it's like, you don't listen to 10 trailers and it's, you can hear the arrangement clear as day. With production music, it's a little bit different because obviously it's not such a rigid structure, but you'll still hear those edit points. You'll still hear the way that it starts, it builds, it drops, and there's just moments where it be easy to cut in and out. And I think composers, that's the mistake, I guess, that they don't, in terms of being authentic, it kind of goes so far that they don't bear in mind what the end use is going to be. So it's just those things of just balancing those two requirements, I guess.
Yeah, man. So much there. So much there. That's something I will go back and listen to 100 times because it's just a reminder, like that. And as you were speaking, I was thinking about like the debate that's going on in like EDM and stuff like that, where people in EDM like their tracks very turdy,
Hmm.
just to so to speak. And by the way, sorry, you can hear my dog in the background, and it's okay. But that's for the listeners. You already know. But what did I want to say? Oh, so there are people who say, yeah, you can still have your track looking like it clips, but it's not. But there's like such a weird feeling in certain some people say, yeah, your track it can kind of look like that and look like this, but in general, what I find and what I've heard a lot of professionals or a lot of really people I regard very highly say, they would rather a track with lower volume and more dynamics, and then what they can do is they can just like up the volume a few dBs and they're good, than to have a completely compressed tracks, completely compressed track that basically does, you've already done what Spotify does to it. So
Hmm.
it kind of limits the options of somebody who's touching it. So that's something I kind of hear. One last thing I'm interested, because we were talking off air on that. You were talking about starting to get into the business more, when after you got basically fucked over, and we were talking offline about how do you structure business and art since you've started to get into business, and that's really interested to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd always, because we started the record label kind of like 25 years ago, I guess. So I had a grounding in the music, the business side of the music industry, even back then when I was DJing. So it sort of came quite natural to kind of move into commercial sync, and then eventually into the business side for the production music and for wider things. I think, I mean, the way I do it is I really struggle with just the idea of mode switching, where someone can be like, on business 1 second, and then the next they're in full creative mode. I just I just struggle with that. I can't. I just get really distracted, and I don't feel that I can particularly focus on either. So what I do is I block out periods of time where it's going to be like 100% business. It's going to be admin and calls and just purely business things, and then periods of time where it's just going to be music. It's just going to be creativity. And I just find if I kind of approach it like that, the two kind of sit really really happily together. But if I'm trying to just switch between the two, then no, it's just a nightmare. That just it just doesn't work because it's like I I can do the business thing regardless, but it's the creativity. That's the point where I have the issue where I can't switch into that mode if I'm still thinking about sorting something out from on a business footing.
Yeah, that's super interesting. That's something I'm definitely grappling with as we speak. Just like how to divide this artistry with the admin stuff, with emails, with all these things. It's just very interesting and has to be done mindful to be sustainable. So yeah, I'm grateful for you saying that for sure, 100%.
I think as well though. I think it is always a balance, and I think it is always difficult. I think it's difficult for most people. Let's put it like that. But I do really firmly believe that as artists and as composers, whether or not you're involved in production music or not, if you're involved in any part of the music industry, the more informed you can be about the business side of the industry, the better you will do, because you're protecting yourself against the scams and the people who are bad actors and um, just wanting to rip you off. Uh, because it's like throughout my career, the amount of people who've said like, oh, my my dad's going to manage me, or this guy that we met down the pub, he's going to manage me, and it's just like, oh my god, like why are you giving over such an important part of your career just to someone who's got no more experience than you, probably less experience than you, just because you don't want to have to deal with it. You don't want to have to just spend the time actually um, reading about how the business works, about how you can really evaluate what's going on in the business. I used to there were I'd come across people who'd be like, oh, I don't sign contracts, and you'd be like, what do you mean you don't sign contracts? No, no,
What?
Eh, really, yeah, and they'd always cite some artist from like 50 fucking years ago. It'd be like, oh no, I never sign a contract. It's like, and you're like, okay, that's great, and I'm not here to judge your art. You be as creative as you want. That's amazing. But don't expect to engage with the actual business side of the music industry if you're not willing to actually play along by their rules. If you're not willing to sign the contracts, if you're not willing to have the publishing deal, to do this, to do that. And it seems to be like there's no requirement for anyone to give up their art for the business side of things, because there's not none whatsoever. The only requirement for them to understand it is if they're expecting to make any money from it. It's that's the only point. You can very happily make music for all your life, as long as you don't want to. You've got no interest whatsoever in making any money whatsoever. Fucking you go for it. Just you don't need to engage with the music industry. But when you do engage with the music industry, then you're going to be expected to sign the contracts and to understand what. I mean, we get it in now. It's like um, our our contract, our main composer contract, is like it is the most straight up fair contract you could ever wish to see. It is just it's like proved by Universal. It's like it's absolutely watertight. It's the same contract that I sign, the other directors of the business sign. We've all got the same contract. There's not anything that changes on this contract, and yet we still have people who are like, oh, I can't sign this contract. And they'll give some bullshit reason, and you're like, this is the issue here is you're not experienced. You don't know what you're signing. You know, um, and suddenly you're hampering yourself because you just don't understand. It's not there's a problem with the contract. It's just the problem is you've got no experience of the business side of things, and just I'm not expecting everyone to be like to know everything about the music, the business side of the music industry, but just that little bit of knowledge just goes so far. Just an understanding, actually, what is production music? What's a publishing deal mean? What are these licenses that are going to be applied to the music? Just to understand it, you know, real simplistic terms. Um, there's a I always name check this because it's to me this is golden. There's a book by Dan Graham, right, called The Composer's Guide to Production Music, or Composer's Guide to Library Music. Honestly, it is fucking gold, right? This book is absolutely amazing, and we I just I recommend it to everyone, right? Everyone who's interested in production music. The first thing, if someone says to me, "Oh, I'm interested in getting involved in production music," I'm like, right, read this fucking book because it's just it explains everything, and it's such a gentle but really deep dive into the business side of the industry, and it's perfect. I mean, I genuinely, I should get royalties from Dan because the amount of times I recommend it to people. But yeah, I think it's just that bit of knowledge goes so far. It just helps you so much.
Dan, if you're listening to this, please hit your boy up with a few tens of thousands of dollars because he probably
You need
made
to
you
get
that.
Dan on the podcast. This is what needs to
Yeah,
happen. You,
yeah. I'm hoping to do that. I'm hoping to do that. It's something that I feel like he's such a big person to me. He's such a big personality that I feel like an interview like that would just happen by itself, if that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah,
And the connection will be made down the line, but I'm not gonna rush it, and I know it's gonna happen sometime. Man, I'm so grateful for you being here and just like sharing your absolute fire here because not many people have talked about the things that you were able to lay out here. So I'm super grateful for you. What
pleasure.
what what something I'd like to ask before I leave is what are you currently grateful for?
Um, what am I currently grateful for? I am grateful. I'm extremely grateful for my life here in Portugal. I'm very I'm extremely grateful for all that's connected to that. I'm also really grateful for and might sound a little bit cheesy, but my my business partners Brian and Phil, because I think us getting together and meeting through having been ripped off so badly was so powerful. That shared experience has really forged something really really nice between the three of us. Um, and so I mean that makes me really grateful for the business, and because it's just you know I get to talk to really cool people, listen to really cool music, make music. I mean, it's not a bad life, you know. It's like I've got I've got a 35-kilogram puppy who's like lumbering around, trying to destroy everything. I've got my wife here. It's just, yeah, I am. I feel extremely grateful. I do feel very blessed.
Man, that comes out, and I'm so grateful to have you on, and I'm so grateful to have you in my life. Thank you so much, Barry, for coming on.
Pleasure. Thank you.